Hey there, Daquan Henry here with another market update. Every single month, the Toronto Real Estate Board releases their monthly statistics, going over all the sales data that has happened over the last 30 days. And as always, I wanted to put together a quick video summarizing all of the key findings that I think are very important for you to know if you are a buyer or seller or planning to be a buyer or seller. So let's hop right into it. So some of the headline news that's coming out from these numbers are going to be the sales as well as new listings. As you can see right here, from 2025 to 2026, in the month of February, sales are down 6%. And new listings from 2025 to 2026 are also down 17%. These two figures together tell us something really important because, yes, obviously both sales and new listings are down, but this is actually telling us that demand is actually outpacing supply because the amount of new listings, new inventory that's coming to the market is lower, or decreasing lower, I should say, than the amount of sales. In other words, a lot more people are giving up on trying to sell than the amount of people giving up on trying to buy. This idea of sellers giving up is still continued to be seen in the number of active listings. We are seeing a small decrease year over year in the amount of active listings on the market. I honestly think that this is because sellers are seeing what some of these homes are selling for and disagreeing with what the market is saying, and still have a bit of hope that the market could get better, taking their home off the market and then aiming to want to sell at a different point. Unfortunately for sellers, when we take a look at average prices, they are still down, and there's no real indication that that's going to reverse anytime soon, as the average price for a home in the GTA is still down 7.1% year over year. These two figures here, looking at days on market, are some of the most shocking data points on this release, with average listing days on market up 33% year over year and property days on market up 28%. These figures are quite large and really help explain why we're seeing less sales and prices come down, because the longer a property typically sits on the market, the lower that sales price, and really just shows how hard it is for sellers to find a buyer at the price that everyone agrees on. And if these days on market stats continue to increase, it's going to be very difficult or impossible for prices to rebound and start increasing. When we switch and start looking at just average prices across the board here in the 416 and the 905, year over year, prices are still down in almost every segment. And if you've been watching a few of my other market updates, you know this has been a continued trend over the last few years at this point. And while this continues and buyers start to see prices come down, it pushes many people to the sideline, because if you're a buyer seeing prices continue to decrease month over month, year over year, there's very little to no motivation to want to hop into the market when you do have other options like renting or even just staying where you are. Jumping into the Habistat, a tool us professional realtors use to track all the stats and sales going on in the GTA. This is a chart that I'm showing every seller that I'm talking to right now, as I feel it really illustrates what's going on in the market. This graph is specifically looking at property sales in the GTA since 2020. This solid blue line is showing median prices, and as you can see, prices did peak out in 2022. Afterwards, we saw a sharp decline, and prices have really been grinding down ever since. And if we look at this dotted blue line, this takes a look at active listings. As you can see, it has peaks and valleys, which represent that seasonality of active listings, where we see a lot of listings in the spring, and then sellers come off the market and die down over Q4 over the winter, and then return again in the spring and or fall. And I like looking at these data points on top of each other just because you can really see when prices were at their peak, active listings, the amount of inventory was very, very low. And since the correction we've seen over the last few years, you can see that there's a clear trend of increased inventory every single season, especially last year when we did see some record breaking amount of inventory. And when we talk about predicting what's going to happen next in the real estate market, it's very clear to see that we do still have a excess amount of supply, an increasing amount of active inventory. And if this continues, it's going to be very difficult for prices to climb. And going into the spring and fall market this year, I am expecting to see the amount of active listings break records that we saw last year, because on top of all of the data that we're seeing in real estate right now, we're seeing a bunch of geopolitical issues happening around the world. And these are real world issues that definitely affect real estate here in Ontario. This is because with all of the uncertainty we had before, with the amount of inventory, prices, interest rates, unemployment in Canada, now mixed with all of these new political issues, it really brings a lot of worry. And the last thing people want to do when they're worried is consider buying one of the most expensive purchases they've ever made. This is definitely a chart that I will continue tracking month over month. And as always, I'll keep you updated with all of my findings. To make sure you don't miss any of these updates, please feel free to subscribe and leave a like on my channel, as it really does help. And lastly, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you feel prices will continue to fall, or do you think we'll see a rebound later this year?